Hey everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Movemates Podcast. I am Matthew once again, joined by my wonderful co-host and best friend.
Callum.
Hey man, lovely to see you. So on today's show, we're getting stuck in with another big franchise of the 2000s, and as you can see by the title, it's the Fast and Furious movies, which I don't think any of us had kind of big fans of it before, or I'd watched a lot of the films. So it's going to be a new sort of chapter on the channel where we're up to the release of Fast 9, is it on now? So one of
hmm
those ones. So I'll pass over to Callum to explain what three movies we're going to be talking about today. So off to you, mate.
Well, I know that my relationship with the franchise, the full extent of that is having seen Hobbs and Shaw in the cinema with you, which we previously reviewed on the channel, which you can check out now in the mini review section, in the playlists. So, I had no interest in watching these films. This was purely for the podcast. I was very reluctant. It was a begrudging watch, but going in, I at least knew the first three were short, so that kind of reassured me. We're talking about the Fast and the Furious, Too Fast, Too Furious, and Fast and the Furious Tokyo Drift. You know, I can't imagine a future where where I care about cars. Like the sort of standard dude, probably has some level of awareness. I have no desire to drive, no desire to have knowledge about what car I do drive if I do drive.
Yeah.
So I mean, I sort of went in thinking that I would really struggle to connect with anything that was happening. And
Yeah.
I also knew that the first three or the first four or five were quite earnest, quite serious, and then they kind of devolve into like this sort of ridiculous
Yeah,
kind
they
of
do.
genre.
Yeah.
And
Go ahead.
I was sort of curious to figure out which sort of version I would prefer, whether it would take itself too seriously and then I would enjoy the sillier ones, or vice versa.
Yeah, because it's interesting, isn't it, mate? Because like the first sort of three have that classic sort of street racing sort of plot lines. There's a little bit of like a crime element and gang element in there as well with all three of them, but for the most part they're kind of more true to form with the classic sort of car stuff. Whereas I suppose later on the franchise has evolved a lot to sort of go more heist style and more sort of action. Obviously Hobbs and Shaw stands to reason that was very much an action flick. Not so much. It was really, cars were not really important in it whatsoever. So yeah, it's really interesting. Credit to whoever had that brainwave, because box office wise, the franchise just went up and up really with that kind of brainwave. So credit to them for that. But yeah, I mean, I've never really been into cars myself. Neither of us drive, as you've probably said before in the channel. So that probably sort of says enough as it is. But yeah, these films did surprise me in a sense as well. I think they are quite self-aware, which is always good with a film when like this. So yeah, just before we kick off today's podcast, thank you so much for everyone who supported us recently. Cal and I really, really do appreciate that massively. And if you want to check out the time codes are in the description below for if you want to skip to your favorite movie or whatever. And our email is also there, moviematespodcast@gmail.com. And you can also check us out on iTunes and other podcast providers too. So mate, I'll let you open the floor with the Fast and the Furious, mate, if you want.
So, the basic plot of this film is that, Brian O'Connor has infiltrated, Dominic Toretto's gang, who are secretly pulling off these truck heists, or, that it's bizarre to me that, that's portrayed as a mystery, when it's very clear
Yeah.
that, surprisingly, the main character of the film, is actually the one behind the plot. It was kind of a
Fight Club
letdown
style.
that was sort of what it was revving up to.
Yeah.
But the plot, it's just Point Break. It's it
I haven't seen Point Break.
it is an exact, pretty
Yeah.
much, one-to-one copy. That film involves an FBI agent, Johnny Utah, infiltrating Bodhi's gang of bank robbers. Like it's just Point Break, and it's
Mhm.
probably, I haven't seen Point Break just yet, but it's probably worse Point Break. Uh, you know, these
Yeah.
films, we've mentioned that the ninth film in the franchise, or 10th if you're including Hobbs and Shaw, is coming out in June. And like these films are fun and definitely surprising that they're as good as they are. But do you think they have any right to have 10 films? When you think of amazing, spectacular films that have one or two just due to per performance.
It's a great question, man, because I think one thing about this franchise is they know what their market is. You know what I mean? Like they know that either way, if they have Fast and Furious in the title, they're gonna make a lot of money. And like we're saying, that's gonna trajectory of going towards more of like a sort of like a heist style, like full on action flick, has definitely done it well in terms of box office. But I mean, yeah, like when you say about like the sort of the undercover cop aspect, like this weekend for me anyway has been like undercover overload, because we've got like two of these movies deal with undercover. Obviously we're going to be reviewing Judas and the Black Messiah as well on the channel pretty soon. So there's been a lot of undercover style plot lines going on the channel this week. But that being said, it's not an avenue I actually thought this movie was going to go down whatsoever. Like when I had heard of these movies, I just thought, that the Brian character and Dom, like I thought they were like childhood best friends or something from their backstory. But no, it's interesting to see here that they kind of did that kind of undercover cop dynamic and sort of had that sort of the police against the gangsters really. But they're not really gangsters. Well, I suppose they are in a sense because they're kind of robbing
They're
trucks, but
cool criminals,
they're cool criminals,
It's
yeah.
violent, but it's sexy, like
Yeah, yes,
it's
exactly.
fine because it's Vin Diesel.
Yeah, and Brian and Dominic aren't exactly like cool racing names, are there? Like a cool racing name was like Trent or something like that, not Brian. Do you know what I mean? It's so strange. But
Yeah,
that
if
being
you're
said,
gonna change your, yeah, if you're gonna change your last name to go undercover, why wouldn't you change your first name? I suppose.
mhm,
I
that's a
get,
good point.
I mean, the character seems incredibly dumb, to be fair. And I'm hoping that when it comes to later films, because the films get less, because the films get sillier, more stupid. I hope that he gets smarter, sort of offset that, because he's real dumb. And I think that's more apparent. And he's kind of like the dude like frat bro, especially in the second film. But the character of Brian, like he is probably just too dumb to remember his own undercover name. So maybe it was necessary.
Potentially. Well, yeah, we'll give him the benefit of the doubt there. But one thing about these movies we kind of talked about off podcast, they're so early 2000s, mate, aren't they? It's fantastic.
Painfully so.
So unusual, but it's very of its time. Very of its time.
Yeah, I think, surely at the time they must have known that the 2000s screamo music would age poorly. Like,
I think
I said
so.
to you
You'd hope
earlier,
so.
like it's very Daredevil 2003 with like the Evanescence, for Bring Me to Life or whatever. Uh, like I don't know that there's music of this era that could be put in, a film from 2021 that people would look back on in, 2020 or in like 2040 and cringe aside from I guess TikTok music. But,
Mhm.
that's not really
Yeah.
music, is it?
No.
But
I know what you
I
mean.
feel like we are probably erring on that side of cringe maybe with that kind of music. Like
Yeah.
I feel like with films like Hobbs and Shaw, you would expect music like that.
Yeah, Hobbs and Shaw, I remember back in the day, I think we both reasonably enjoyed it. Obviously it's not like a masterpiece or anything like that. But I think it knew what it was, and that's one thing with these movies. Like I think they are quite self-aware. Obviously, you've got really sort of like sexy montages in there, like that. It knows what it knows what it is. It knows what it is. There's a lot of weird sort of like car montages, for the hardcore sort of car fans there and stuff, and there is a lot to be liked here. That I think in general in this movie the racing scenes are quite well edited and well choreographed. Like luckily there's very little CGI, so it's very much like practical sort of stunt work and stuff. So that's quite refreshing, to be honest with you, just to see like it feels like a film. Like it feels very charming in a sense. Like it feels very how would I say? It just feels very original. It feels like a lot of work what was put into it. Maybe not so much with like the characters, but with the whole like the stunt work and the practical effects. I think clearly there's some, they have a passion for the craft there. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, it's definitely it's pretty much it seems to be, always like real cars, sometimes in CGI backgrounds or CGI situations.
Mhm.
But when it comes to like Fast Nine, they're just CGI in full cars to do stunts that are impossible. And I do feel like that sort of removes a bit of like authenticity,
Does mate, actually
that
does.
is sort of pure here. So I definitely agree with you. And one character, I sort of did sort of I did gravitate towards a lot of characters in the film. One that I did not is the very aggressive character Vince.
Yeah.
And I wrote very early on, there's a scene in which me and Brian are having a bit of a back and forth, a bit of a rapport. And decides to use homophobic slurs to the person hitting on Mia. It makes sense, lad.
Yeah, of
He
course.
big brained that. That makes
Uh,
total sense.
Absolutely, mate.
And I wrote that I hope he dies a horrible death. And
Yeah,
he
he's
comes
an
quite
unpleasant guy.
close near
He
the end of
does, mate.
the film, and I was quite let down that that it didn't follow through.
Yeah, I know, mate. He was definitely a very horrible character in the film. I suppose the film did have to have that kind of antagonist there as well. Obviously you've got sort of the other like biker gang. I think they're led by a guy called, like, is it Johnny Tran or something like that,
Couldn't tell
something like that. But yeah, with the Vince character, I think for me, because it is unusual that the film tries to present the Toretto gang as kind of innocent until at the end when they're revealed to be those like the truck robbers, like the heist guys. So it is unusual. That being said, I can understand why they had feel the need to like bring another antagonist there. That being said, you've mentioned the character of Mia there. I actually thought the Brian and Mia romance was quite sweet in the film. I'm a sucker for romance, and I thought here it was actually very, 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 very well done.
Yeah, I think it's very underdeveloped, and you don't see a lot of it. But I think they have good chemistry where he really, really doesn't with Eva Mendes in Too Fast, Too Furious.
Yeah,
You
absolutely.
I think the back and forth is believable, and I think that situation is believable that you would maybe be turned your fake identity would be turned if love was a factor.
Hmm.
That does play for me, honestly.
Definitely, mate, for sure, absolutely. And well, another romance in the film is with Dom and what's Michelle Rodriguez's character called?
Letty.
Letty. I feel so bad for saying this, but like, I didn't think she was good whatsoever.
I mean, she probably gets like 4 lines of dialogue in this
She
film,
does, yeah, she does.
but yeah, it is. I think that a lot of a lot of dialogue given to the women in this film, and especially Too Fast, Too Furious with the Suki character, like
Hmm.
they're very very clunky, and I don't
Yeah,
think it allows the actor to give a good performance.
that's very true.
So
That's
I'm
very, very true.
optimistic for future films, but yeah, I would agree with you.
Yeah, I know. I do feel bad for saying that because I think she in the later films, I know she becomes more of an important character, and hopefully she gets more room to sort of develop there. But I think for me, Vin Diesel actually quite surprised me. I kind of thought he would be, I was quite ignorant to him because I thought he would sort of be this bland, nothing sort of bad boy character who wears a tank top and tells people what to do. But I actually think he's quite an emotional character. Like, there's a lot more behind the surface there. So I thought he was absolutely great, to be honest with you.
Yeah, exactly the same for me. We're literally my exact next point.
Well, go for it,
That
mate.
I did have this impression going in that he wasn't even a good actor. I'd seen him in just really Guardians of the Galaxy, where he provides a voice role, and you can't really say whether
Yeah.
that's a good or a bad performance. And Bloodshot, so I think maybe my impression of him as an actor was sort of cemented by
Yeah.
the memes of him, like we're not friends, we're family, kind of
Yeah.
those memes that just kind of make it out to be a bit of a joke.
Mhm.
And his performance in Bloodshot, which I don't know how he could have saved that film, to be honest. Like,
Is it bad?
it's it's tolerable. I wouldn't even say it's like watchable. I'd say you could tolerate it.
Yeah.
You don't need
Okay.
to
I
like
get you.
Clockwork Orange yourself, but it is pretty close.
Mhm.
But in this film, he's charming.
Yeah, no, he is. He absolutely is. But he's certainly, him and Paul Walker, I think, have really good chemistry, and it's just evident. I think those two characters definitely, obviously, the most well fleshed out. They get more to do. They have more screen time. So, I think he's absolutely great. I mean, really, really surprising as well. And I think it makes it even more ridiculous that he's not in the second film to me, or the
Yeah.
barely in the third. It's bizarre.
Do you think it was that he didn't want to come back? Maybe he was doing the way he did that like Chronicles of Riddick franchise.
Was it like
You
Triple
know,
X or
it
something? Was it? Or oh no, no, sorry, it was ridiculous.
Yeah, like it was Pitch Black, Chronicles of Riddick. But
Yeah,
yeah, there is that franchise as well. So he may have been busy with that, and then came back to the third film after seeing maybe the financial and critical, well, not critical popularity of the second film, but the
I know what you mean.
I
Yeah,
think a lot of the praise was like with these films, the highest praise you get is you can switch off your brain and enjoy it. It's never classed as high art, but there is of course an audience for this kind of film, which turns out to be us, I guess.
Yeah, I know.
Because
It's I
I think
quite
we
liked
quite
it.
enjoyed these films.
Yeah, for sure.
But a big sort of I've written a full paragraph on my next
No,
point,
go for it,
and
buddy.
I think it's
Crack
because
on.
it's something that I've never really got to talk to anyone about, and I struggle to word it. So if it doesn't come across fully, I don't know, but this film's of course about street racing, and that is a motif carried throughout all three
Mhm.
films that we're watching for today. And I've never understood the concept of giving everyone the same advantage in the same sport. Just don't give it to anybody. And what I'm talking about in relation to this film is the NOS, or the nitrous oxide they're using to power their cars.
Mhm.
If you're claiming the win was all in the skill of your driving, then you shouldn't all need to use it. And if it's about how much NOS you have, or about how good a car you have, then you haven't won on skill. So why even do it? You know, I sort of related it back to performance enhancing drugs in sport. I would I wouldn't condone, but I would understand someone's thought process in using them secretly to get money or notoriety. When they've been discussing recently in the last few years about legalizing them within the sport, then what's the point? Athletic competition is about physical excellence. It's to prove that you're
Yeah.
the best at your sport, the top of your game. And it removes all integrity, I think. If everyone has the same blanket advantage, because if everyone is boosted by the same percentage, then it's pointless, because the ratio and the results are the same. So like all you're doing is improving your game, but you're doing that in a inauthentic way that has no integrity.
I mean, I think that's a fantastic point. And I'd written something similar, on that sort of train of thought. A lot of the races in these films, they're like, okay, prove who's the better driver, those kind of things. And when you have that nitrous oxide, it just whoever has the most money to splash out on their vehicle is going to win that. Do you know what I mean? And on that note as well, all the races are just in straight lines. How is that going to prove anything and whatsoever? Do you know what I mean? Like obviously with Tokyo Drift, they introduced that sort of motif of the drift, which like the character, I think is it Sean in that film,
Mm-hmm.
kind of has to learn in order to like to achieve a victory there. But here, all the races are in straight lines. All the characters have all the vehicles rather have nitrous oxide, and I mean Brian, the Brian character even says himself, like, I think it is in this film where one of the characters is racing another one, and the Brian's like, yeah, the other guy has like over 100 grand spent in the hood of his car, like he's obviously going to win just because he's put more money into it. So I mean, the drugs in sport is definitely an apt comparison there. A sport I quite like, strongman. Like every like strongman there is just obviously has some degree of performance enhancing drugs. Otherwise, like it's impossible just to get that big naturally. So it is interesting as well, because I suppose a lot of them would argue like if everyone's taking it, then everyone's in an even playing field. But it's not really the case, because
Then
everyone's body reacts differently to different substances. So
yeah,
it's not
and
really a fair
even if
point.
you're at an even playing field with your competitors, if you're trying to portray physical excellence, or that you're the best in your sport, then you're
Mhm.
not on an even playing field with everyone else trying to do it legitimately.
Yes, exactly, mate. It's you can't really be a role model in that case, can you? If you yourself are putting something in your body that you can't naturally achieve anyway. So it's a really
Hmm.
fair comparison, mate. And no, you're absolutely spot on. Like the nitrous oxide stuff, that never really makes sense to me, because literally the first two movies, it is pretty much like nitrous oxide, just the movie pretty much just press that in the wind,
Hmm.
so to speak. But yeah, it's a good point.
This film comes to sort of an admittedly tense climax. Where
Mhm.
they have this sort of stressful moment where they're trying to peel Vince off of this moving truck, and in the moments after that, after Brian has successfully saved Vince from death, he reveals to Dom that he is in fact working with the police. Quite nice of Dom not to just kill Brian immediately.
I thought so. Like Vin Diesel's such a sweetheart there. Any other sort of gangster or mob boss there just kills him immediately, doesn't he? Which is funny. But yeah,
Because I mean, like, they were hardly brothers.
yeah, I don't. Yeah, at that point, yeah, I suppose the relationship wasn't fully what it was in the later movies. So yeah, that's a really good point. Like it is. This movie is, there's so many funny moments in it, especially the second one has quite a few funny moments too. But this one too. Like there's so much sexual tension as well in this film. Did you notice that as well? It's just so much.
Between the two of them.
Well, not necessarily between the two of them. Just in general, like it's a very sort of it's definitely a film for like your obviously your petrol heads, but also just how would I describe this? Just for like
It's
it's
very
very it's a very
Transformers,
it's a,
Michael
yeah,
Bay-esque.
exactly, mate. It's a very sort of classic Transformers where like you've got this sort of beautiful girl in this kind of like really action packed environment with all these like muscular men. It's quite cliched of the 2000s, if that makes sense. Do you know what I
I
mean?
think the second one especially, when they moved to
Yes.
Miami, because like everyone's like golden and glistening like that. To
Yeah.
me,
Yeah,
that's very
exactly, mate.
much the Michael Bay aesthetic.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. And there's nothing wrong with that. Like I think that has its place. Obviously, those films tend to do very well at the box office. Like,
Hmm.
but it's just yeah, just an observation, I suppose, isn't it? Just yeah.
Would you want to talk about the Transformers films at some point?
Mate, the
Because
first Transformers film was my childhood. Like I've seen all of them. I love three of them, and really don't like two of them.
have you
So
seen
yeah,
Bumblebee?
I haven't seen Bumblebee actually. No, so I'll probably have to watch that too. That'll be fun.
Yeah, I've seen two of the Transformers films, the first and the fifth, and the fifth is genuinely one of the worst films I've ever seen in my
Yeah,
life.
the fifth one's
Like it
really
was
bad. It's so bad. The first
like
one
I
though is
saw that
quite
in the
underrated.
cinema, and I was like, we talked the other day about have we ever considered walking out of a cinema,
Transformers
and
Five. Yeah.
I said I couldn't think of one to mind. I did genuinely go, I could just leave now.
Yeah.
I'm free to do that. But
Yeah.
but I don't know. I like to. I think sometimes a film can win you around with a great third act, and it did not do that.
No, I think the original three kind of ones with like Shia LaBeouf, I actually quite enjoy, especially the first one. Like I think the first one's got a bit of charm to it. It's quite and it looks great for 2007. But yeah, we should definitely review them one day, mate. That'll be funny. That'll be funny. There's some funny moments in
Because
there.
they are sort of in a way a marvel of CGI. But
Oh yeah,
then
absolutely. They look great.
when it's kind of just like CGI jagged metal clattering around each other, it's kind of hard to discern what's happening. But I
Yeah.
mean that yeah, I suppose that doesn't take away from the spectacle of it.
Yeah, I mean, I love those movies from my childhood so much. I can acknowledge they're not good whatsoever, but I don't know, just that's nostalgia speaking, I think, for me anyway.
So did you have anything further on this film?
I don't, mate. If you've got nothing else, I'd love to hear your rating for it, man.
I found some of the editing within this film headache inducing, and the effects are very much of their time. It has a charming cast, a compelling though admittedly underdeveloped romance and fun sequences throughout. It wasn't the slog I anticipated, and I came away from it, having genuinely enjoyed it. So, a lot of our ratings and rankings of series, involve comparing each film to each other. So from what I expect from the franchise, what I've seen from it already, I'd give this film, a maybe an 8. I did really enjoy it.
Yeah, it's a really solid film, mate. Like, there's nothing particularly like amazing about it, but that being said, there's nothing particularly horrible about it either. Like, I think it's a very enjoyable, engaging film. There's a few funny moments in there. The characters all gel quite well, like they are what they're supposed to be. Vin Diesel really surprised me. Paul Walker's great. I'd probably give it like a 7, mate. Yeah, I think it's a very serviceable film, mate, for sure. It's great. Now the second film, Too Fast, Too Furious, not my favorite movie title ever, mate. I've got to be honest.
No,
Maybe one of the worst ones. Not too sure. It's quite a strange film
yeah, if
because
if I was buying these on DVD, this film would be this
yeah,
franchise would be a nightmare. Like I already
yeah.
paid like too much money to get like all three of the Dark Knight films together,
Mm,
so that I keep them in alphabetical order. But if
yeah,
I was like the first alphabetical movie that I have to put up is the second film in the franchise, that
yeah,
that would
and
infuriate
yeah,
me.
I get you 100%, mate. And obviously we mentioned there's a bit of a there's a huge cast change here.
Hmm.
Kind of straight away. You know, out go Vin Diesel and Michelle Rodriguez, and in go actor turned rapper or rapper turned actor Ludacris and Tyrese
Hmm.
Gibson, who's also from the
Hmm.
the Michael Bay Transformers movies, which is interesting. I want to hear your thoughts on that kind of switcheroo there because it's not a like for like transition, obviously. But what's your
Yeah.
thoughts?
Well, it's bizarre to me that, anyone after watching the first film thought that Brian should be the principal character, because he's this sort of bland everyman, dumb bro kind of character. And he definitely needed to be in the first one, and I think he needed to be the main character, because he's the point of view character infiltrating this gang.
Yeah.
I think after that you should recognize that he's far less compelling than Dom. So if you're gonna, like, if it was, a scheduling issue or something like that, work around it. Don't sort of shit out an inferior product with Brian at the helm. You just, for the sake of getting something out quickly, because I think it's a massive mistake. I think this film is definitely watchable. It has a lot of fun moments, but I mean, it pales in comparison to the original. Everything seems, a bit more cheesy. A bit more, Michael Bay-esque.
It's less
And
original.
again, a lot of people love that. But I think it, when you're already inconsistent by the second film in the franchise, that's maybe cause for alarm.
Yeah, agreed, mate, for sure. And obviously it brings back the motif of kind of the undercover dynamic where obviously Brian has left the force, and him and Tyrese Gibson's character, forgive me, I forget his name, sort of team up to try
Roman
infiltrate.
Pierce.
Roman Pierce, that's it, Roman Pierce, good name. They infiltrate this gang, so to speak, or this sort of shady business going on. And yeah, I feel like it's such a big surprise to me because when I think of Fast and Furious, I think Paul Walker, Vin Diesel, and Michelle Rodriguez, two of which are not in this film, which is just mind-boggling to me. Like when I see, like especially when like I think everyone, back when Paul Walker, sadly passed away, Fast and Furious 7 was like I would argue Fast and Furious 7 is one of the biggest films of all time, just because like I remember when that film came out, everyone was talking about it, mate. Like it was insane. And obviously back then, there's I've seen on YouTube like the sort of the montage sort of at the end of that film, like the tribute to Paul Walker, and it is lovely, like it's great. And when I saw that, I was like, oh, these characters must span back movies ago, like yeah. And obviously they're introduced in the first movie, but like they're not in the next two movies in the
Yeah.
franchise, have nothing to do with them whatsoever, and they never interact once. And one of which has none of them in it. So it's a really bizarre franchise choice, mate. Like I don't know what was going on there. Maybe this couldn't get them back for it.
Yeah, I mean, it sort of plays, at least, because I think that may be, the most respectful, well handled, situation of
Yeah,
a tragedy,
definitely, mate.
in film. I think it was honestly, I haven't seen the whole film, but I have seen, that scene as well, and it seems like, it's incredibly respectful,
Yeah.
to Paul Walker and his family. I don't think you could do anything better than, bringing in his brother to finish the job. If you need, to bring someone in to finish that film, like I feel like that's the most respectful decision you could make.
Yeah,
uh
mate,
you know
definitely.
so I mean, I respect that film hugely for that. But yeah, it did play, with that relationship, as though it was, decades of build up, either that they were childhood friends, or that it was like Star Wars, where you had like the
Yeah.
30 years between sagas.
Mm.
I suppose it's just, it's more of a send off, for the viewers,
Yeah, I
to say a
suppose that's a good
respectful
point.
goodbye. So, I suppose, it was fitting.
Yeah, it's a very touching tribute for sure, and we'll obviously discuss that when we get into that film, which I'm looking forward to. I think it's one of the better ones in the franchise for sure. But I mean, yeah, obviously the characters of Roman and what's Ludacris's character called? Is it like
I think it's like Tej.
Tej? That's it. I was like, is it TJ or Tej? It is Tej. Yeah, like obviously they become sort of main characters later on. What do you think of them here? Because I think Tyrese Gibson just oozes charisma. I don't know, something about him, I quite enjoy.
Yeah, there's a level of cheesiness, but I do think he's a charming addition, and I'm glad to know he comes back. But his sort of gleamingly pearlescent smile is just like,
It is,
it
he's
it
got a
it,
good
it
set of
does kind of
teeth, I
warm
think.
warm up the screen. It feels like, a light, being shone on this film.
Mhm.
But there's a level of cheesiness there. I think
For sure.
this whole film, when people say that, you know the franchise sort of devolves into silliness, like I feel like this was the blueprint for that. It was sort of
Yes.
the inciting incident. And the third film kind of goes back to being like as earnest a film as it can be for, a film about street racing. I think
Yeah.
there's an inherent silliness there. But the first and the third, I think, take themselves seriously within that context. Yeah, I think he's delightful.
Yeah, I mean, I think he is. And like you're kind of saying, man, I feel like with this film, there is kind of like a glossy sort of over sort of simplification of the plot again. Like the film, just even from like the eye test, like it visually looks a bit more glossy, but it's kind of, it just glosses over everything that made the first one charming. Like if that makes sense. Like I feel like this, so it is still very engaging, it's entertaining, but everything feels like sort of a sort of textured model of something different in the first film, or like just characters, just character motifs, or just like cutting paper cut characters just for this film. Obviously, Eva Mendes is in this film. I don't think she's as charming as Mia, but you know, a 5-year-old, sort of 7-year-old Matthew definitely had a crush on her in Ghost Rider. I'm not even gonna lie to you, mate. I really did.
Understandable.
Understandable. Yeah, it's not, maybe not the best movie ever, but yeah, the childhood crush was there.
Yeah, I think that as an independent character, she gets, pretty much as much development as Mia. So I think she's as likable a character.
Mhm.
But when it comes to romantic chemistry with Paul Walker, it's non-existent. For me, Brian and Mia were convincing enough, but this one for me, it was somehow more underdeveloped, and I think chemistry is integral. I don't
Mhm.
know how they had them audition together, like do a chemistry read and
Yeah.
think magic.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, it's funny how that works, isn't it?
Like, do you ever get in like a film, like it seems like someone was like cast as like like a favor, where it just seems
I
like
never.
they were given the role out of like obligation, or like a favor to a friend or family member, because you're like, who like
Yeah.
auditioned them and went, yeah, this is the one.
Yeah, I know. Like it's funny you mentioned the Michael Bay Transformers films. I never bought the Shia LaBeouf Megan Fox dynamic there, really. To be honest with you, like I never really understood that kind of romance. I didn't think they had much chemistry. And it's an interesting thing we kind of mentioned in our Kong Skull Island review about Tom Hiddleston and Brie Larson. Like strangely we didn't think they had good chemistry either. So I
Yeah.
think it's just like chemistry is a huge factor in films, like especially in like films like a romance involved, which is pretty much every film ever made. But
Yeah.
I just feel like it's so vital, and like having two actors that get along on and off screen is very important too.
Yeah, but it's also, it seems irrelevant to acting ability, because you could
Yes,
put
mate. Yes.
two great independent actors, beside each other, and pitch them as a couple, and it just doesn't work.
I know it's bizarre. Like, and I think that's why WandaVision, I think, does, and this is a bit of a tangent. Like WandaVision did that so well because like Paul Bettany and Elizabeth Olsen aren't exactly actors I thought would get along or have good chemistry, but they absolutely do. Sorry, I'm about to sneeze. I didn't sneeze. Okay. But yeah, they're actors I thought would necessarily get on well. They got on great, and their chemistry is just palpable. Like you can feel it, on screen. It's great.
Mhm. Yeah, we've said quite a few comments about this being sort of a down step from the original.
Hmm.
If I was gonna highlight one improvement, I do think that the mission that Brian and Roman are on is an improvement on the original, because before it was just who's robbing trucks, and it was played as a mystery, and it was obvious that it was Dom. You were like, yeah, like
Yeah,
obviously.
yeah,
uh you know
yeah.
but here it's a mission to like take down a criminal, and you don't know exactly how it'll play out.
Mhm. There's a bit of mystery there.
In the end with these films, it's not Avengers Infinity War. You're like, in the end, the closest people to the good guys, will win out in the end. I
Mhm.
suppose, and or at least the protagonists will win out in the end, because you could argue they're not the best of people. But that that's how this formula works. You know the point B, but you don't know the journey to get there as
Yeah.
cemently, or as certainly as you did in the first.
Yeah, I mean, I think you're absolutely spot on there, Callum, to be honest with you. With this film, there is that air of mystery going on, and that's why it is still engaging for me. Like, I was definitely entertained by it. And, there is some kind of horrible sort of acts committed by I'm terrible with names, isn't it? What's like the main antagonist called, the gangster guys?
Verone.
Like Verone. It is Verone, isn't it? He like he brutally tortures someone by trapping a rat under like a bowl thing and heating it up, and like it is just like, that is horrible, isn't it? Like that is disgusting. Like I would hate that if that was me. I'd hate it. To be honest, as many people probably would.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I think the ratio of people who'd love that is quite low.
Quite low, yeah. You'd have to be quite strange to enjoy that kind of thing. But that being said, yeah, I think that even,
Hey,
yeah,
we hey, let's not shame anybody.
it's not shame. Hey, if you
Rare,
like,
not
yeah,
strange.
yeah, not strange. Yeah, sure. If you like that kind of thing, no problem, no qualms from us at the Movie Mates channel. But going back to Verone.
Unless you're doing anything illegal.
Yes, of course, absolutely. Uh, but yeah, with Verone and stuff, like there is a bit of mystery there. Is he's a bad guy, but you don't actually know that sort of progression, that journey to his overall sort of scheme going on there. And with that, you've got a few nice little car chases in there, which by the essence of this film you're gonna have. But for that being said, like it is like a reasonably well edited, maybe edited is maybe not the right word, reasonably well constructed narrative, in the sense that like you're right, you've got A, you've got B, it's the journey that you're kind of developing with. So yeah, credit to the movie for that. It did it well, I thought.
Yeah, it's not a challenge, to the viewers, intellectually, but I think it plays very easily.
Hmm.
It is kind of,
Makes sense.
switch off viewing where where
Mhm.
where you're like, yeah, it makes sense, that there aren't any huge lapses in logic. But I guess, that's because no logic is applied to it, so it doesn't like break its own rules.
Yeah.
But I don't have anything further on the film, Matthew.
No, I don't either, dude. What would you give it out of 10?
So, again, going with the fact that we're probably going to be comparing these films to themselves in reality. I think that it is a step down from the original, except in conception. But in execution, I do think it is a step down, especially in the romance department. So I would probably give it. I think it's watchable. It's enjoyable. I don't think the editing is as headache inducing. And I think that there are less lapses in logic, as I said.
Hmm.
So I'd probably give it a 6.5/7.
Yeah, no, I think I'd have to concur, mate. I'd probably give it a 7 as well. I think it's probably a little less charming than the original. It's certainly less original than the original. And I kind of did miss the presence of Vin Diesel here. That being said, I think the introduction of Ludacris and Tyrese Gibson was a great brainwave as well. Like, credit to whoever cast those two gentlemen, so that they're obviously full of charisma and get on very well. Eva Mendes, I think she's okay. Like you're saying, the charisma certainly isn't there with Brian, but I think that's maybe because I'm um so you know what's the word? I like, it's because I like the Brian and Mia dynamic so much that it kind of makes me be lesser with the Eva Mendes one.
I
I,
did
I
think you were going to say because you're so in love with Eva Mendes, no
yes,
one else could have her in your mind.
that, yeah, certainly that's a 7-year-old Matthew's point of view anyway, for sure. But that being said, I think there is some funny moments in here. Obviously, you've got like the stare and drive with well, don't do that, kids. Don't, if you're driving, don't do that. You'll probably crash the car. But I mean, yeah, it's sort of more charming. Sorry, less charming, equally as engaging though. So I'd probably have to concur and give it a 7 as well. And quite a strange sequel, very very strange one in terms of like implications for the franchise. But yeah, certainly a
Mhm.
serviceable film for sure. Um, third and final film we're going to be talking about today is, it's certainly one of the strangest third films in a franchise I've ever seen in my life, because
Mhm.
it just takes what you know with the first two and completely spins it on its head. Different country, different characters, different everything, but still has massive implications for the franchise because
Yeah,
messes up the timeline, the narrative. I mean, I had to print the screenshot off here just to
yeah.
clarify what was
Because
going on.
I explained this to you because I like a few weeks ago I think because I was reading about it and I said to you like that I think it's the eighth chronologically in the franchise.
Yeah,
I think it's all films between the third film and the seventh film are set between the second film and the third film, and that's wild.
yeah. So pretty much, for those who don't know, because I certainly didn't know before this, after this film, namely Tokyo Drift, three prequels, which are Fast and Furious, the fourth one, I think that would be. Yeah. So
Hmm.
Fast and Furious 2009, Fast 5, and Fast and Furious 6 established Han with the main characters before he settled in Tokyo. So I'll not say what happens to Han in the future movies.
Hmm.
Um, Lucas Black also returns in
Yeah.
in a few future movies as
I
well.
don't know how that's gonna work if he's like, aged like nearly like if he's aged 15 years and it's set like 2 days after Tokyo Drift. Like
Yeah,
he
I
already
know.
looks like a 40-year-old man in this film.
I
I
know.
don't know how that's gonna play in
Yeah.
Fast 9.
Dude, he's an 18-year-old and he looks 36 in this film. It's crazy. So yeah, Lucas Black, alongside Sung Kang, who plays Han, Bow Wow, and Jason Tobin, all in this film have been cast in the ninth Fast and Furious film, which is interesting. So at least
Mm.
they're not doing like an X-Men scenario where like the third film in that franchise they just completely disregarded. And you know that franchise has enough to be said about itself in terms of timelines and stuff. But I think it's very interesting. Obviously, with this film, they didn't have the idea of making it the eighth film in the franchise and have have it be the conclusion of Han's arc rather than sort of the beginning. So it's certainly a very strange film, but a breath of fresh air, might I add as well. It's certainly unique.
Yeah, it was nice having a bit of a break from Brian because I was kind of sick of his shit. I was just
Fucking
like,
Brian.
you're incompetent. You let the criminal go. I know he's been your best friend for 4 days. But you let the criminal go, and then you stole money. You stole evidence at the end of
Yeah, he
Too
did,
Fast,
didn't
Too
he?
Furious. So I mean, he's not a good guy and he's not a smart guy. So I was happy for at least a one movie break.
Yeah, and I feel like with this film, it is one of, if not the most iconic Fast and Furious film in terms of, I think this is the one of the ones along with, Fast Seven that people think of, when they think of this franchise. There's a lot of iconic moments in here, and I think there's something to be said about its originality. Having it take place in a different country with totally different cast members and a different lead. It's certainly very bizarre, but I think for like we're saying, we're maybe a little bit sort of underwhelmed or maybe a bit fed up with the Brian character. So rather than going to the natural possibility for me was go to Vin Diesel's character then, but they're deciding no, we'll just have him for a cameo later on, and we'll just start off fresh with Lucas Black. So I think it's certainly a strange decision, but I actually quite liked it in a weird way. I know that's maybe a hot take. I don't know if this film's well received or not, but I don't know. I thought it was like a breath of fresh air in this franchise.
Yeah, I had this impression going in that everybody hated it and it was cringy and it was bad. And then I think it's, pretty much on par with the original.
Yeah, I
I mean, it
agree.
is bizarre
Mm.
to sort of take it in this, completely different turn. I think it was very clearly, a script that was in development hell, and then they've just slapped the Fast and Furious name on it and then given a 20-second cameo to, to Dom to
Mhm.
link the two franchises.
Yeah, they did,
It's
didn't
it's
they? Yeah.
clearly about, you know, I think I'm not even going to make a comparison to another film because I don't want to get it wrong. But I think it was just a script about street racing. They then just slapped the name Fast and Furious on, which I have to imagine is the same case for Hobbs and Shaw. Dwayne
Yeah.
Johnson probably just read a script and about two people, and then they added the names Hobbs and Shaw and then slapped Fast and Furious Presents in front of it.
Yeah, that probably was the case for it, to be honest with you. But with this one, I feel like it does a lot right too. I think introducing Sung Kang as Han is brilliant. I think he so far he's probably my favorite character in the franchise. To be honest
Hmm.
with you, I think he just, as I say, similar to Tyrese Gibson and Ludacris, oozes charisma, and that's one thing about these films. Like, there's not one weak link. I think, in terms of once you get to the final cast, the recurring ones, Fast and Furious 6, maybe Fast and Furious 5 onwards. So Michelle Rodriguez, Vin Diesel, Paul Walker, Tyrese Gibson, Ludacris, and Sung Kang. Like, that's like the core. Was that core 5, core 6? So I think that's just they struck gold there in terms of, yeah, they've got actors who can act. They've got actors who are like cool and hip and cool, like audiences can enjoy, especially like Ludacris obviously had a big following at the time. Um, three, they all work well, they gel well together. It feels like these people could exist in real life, strangely. And obviously it introduces other actors like Gal Gadot in future movies and those kind of things. So yeah, I think they really did struck gold with like the cast members here, and I think introducing sort of Sung Kang early doors is a good sort of good stepping stone to get to that progression, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I definitely agree. And within this film, you've mentioned that he does die within this film, or according to Fast Nine, I haven't seen any of the promotional material, but his inclusion is definitely an interesting development. So he may be alive. I'm not sure. I haven't. I feel like there's something in the trailer about that. But I don't really want to pursue that. I'd like to sort of just go in fresh to the film. And I think if I'd been paying better attention and if I didn't know beforehand, Han's death would have really affected me, because I think it's played very well, especially in the shock value aspect.
Yeah, for
And
sure.
I'd been wondering, for a while, why so many people clung to this character, enough for his popularity to outweigh the continuity making sense. Because a character, bringing back a character, I guess, has to be really worth it for them to be like, yeah, we'll just do like the next three films as prequels to this film.
Yeah.
Like, logically that makes no sense, and it's a lot to ask of the audience. So I was like, what made that worth it? And now
Yeah.
I do get it, because I agree with you. I think he's the best lead character so far.
And I definitely, yeah, for sure, man. And I'd definitely be intrigued to see like how this film was received in Asia, like if it has like a big sort of following over there. Obviously, Tokyo Drift set in Japan, but I don't know. I think there is something charming about this film. It's original too, and it's got some funny moments and some great lines and there. Like there's a moment where like Han is kind of like there's these sort of girls in a car and like Han is just like drifting around them and just to get of their phone number. And I kind of thought, if
Mm.
if I knew drifting was the key to getting a girl's number, I would have started driving years ago, mate. To be honest with you, but
Yeah,
yeah,
I loved in like the opening, in what sort of his character establishing sequence, Sean's, that
yeah,
he's having this race, against the high school jock for the girl.
for the
It's
girl,
like, I
yeah,
don't really
winner
know
gets
what
me.
what those implications
Yeah,
are.
I
But,
know.
one, would you really want to date someone who chooses partners based on how good they drag race, and is not whatsoever influenced by their jock boyfriend being a total asshole? Like, would you really want that to be your girlfriend? And two, I found it so hilarious when this 39-year-old looking woman just went, maybe I'm getting a new date to prom. And I was like,
Yeah.
I look 14 and we would have had our, formal a year ago. This woman looks, you know, mid 30s to me. She's presumably in her 20s, but Jesus Christ, like her being like, maybe I have someone else to go to prom with.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, wow, wow.
Yeah.
And there is so much in this film, I think these films, try to try to quickly snapshot, what it is like living in America and what it's like living in Asia. Whether those are accurate, I have no idea. I've never having experienced either. I imagine the depiction of Asia isn't necessarily accurate. I think a lot of the Asian characters within the film are, you know, criminals or bad guys. And I don't think that's a fair representation necessarily.
Hmm. Yeah.
Because really, the characters that we're following, we have Sean, and then we have Twinkie, and then we
Yeah.
have whatever Nessa, I think, or something.
Something
Like,
like
do you
that.
do you remember
No.
what her name is? No. And and then we have Han. So for a film set in Asia, the sort of principal protagonist cast is not Asian.
You know what? Sort of thinking about that on that sort of train of thought as well. Kind of thinking, if I was a Japanese individual and I was kind of think, big into films, I kind of think, every sort of American made film that introduces Japan or Japanese culture, like it's never an accurate depiction whatsoever, or how I would imagine it anyway. Like you'd think, like it's you obviously with this film you wouldn't think it's an accurate depiction, but I don't know, just any film that I can recall that sort of introduces that sort of Japanese culture, that Japanese heritage, it doesn't do it in the most respectful manner ever. Even like going back to like a film like The Wolverine or something, it just goes straight into like, yeah, the Yakuza, like the cliche
Yeah.
sort of,
It's always samurai or food or crime,
yeah,
but
it's
not
never,
just regular
yeah,
people.
yeah, exactly, mate, exactly. Like the Wolverine maybe does a little bit towards the middle point of that film where like it develops the Mariko relationship and sort of and with that those kind of things. But I think in general, um, I feel like there is more to be explored there, in just films in general. But yeah, with this film, you're right. The cast isn't it's not exactly like a an all Asian cast or anything like that. Like it's very much like American to its core as well. And they've picked the most American guy with the most
Yeah,
American accent you'll ever hear. Like I'm from
the
Texas,
country
boy.
bumpkin.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I've never gotten used to that Texan accent, mate. It just doesn't fit with this film. I don't know. It's so strange. But that being said, I think Lucas Black is he's trying his best. I think he's not bad. He's not. That sounds so sort of horrible, but I don't
Yeah,
mind him. He definitely doesn't look 18, but what actor does look 18 in the early 2000s when they're supposed to be playing a teenager? Tobey Maguire certainly didn't. So
yeah.
so
You
yeah, fair,
know,
I'm not holding too much stake in him.
and we've talked about, I don't think the portrayal of Japan is, I mean, I can't speak to it, concretely, sort of, the I can't give, an answer as to whether it is or not, but it doesn't seem offensive. It just seems unrepresentative, you
Yeah.
know.
Yes.
So I
Yeah.
mean,
Yeah.
it seems more like a misstep than like, a a morality of the filmmaking issue.
Hmm.
You know, but I think what we know, what we see of America is definitely true. I know that there's things about America that still just seem so wild, like the fact that when they enter a high school in America, they have metal detectors.
Yeah. I
Like,
know, that's so bizarre,
surely
isn't it?
that should give you like a real wake up call as to something is not right here. The fact that you're checking every child for a gun maybe
That's
should
an issue
worry you
there.
as
That's
an
an issue there.
institution.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, it's just that's a great description. I mean, it should be a wake up call. So like, what's going on here? Like, something's quite clearly not right with your culture, society. If like you're just scanning kids for like assault rifles in their bags, it's crazy. That's an issue for another day in itself. Like, the American sort of gun control things spans back years, doesn't it? That whole
Yeah, I'm sure we can
perspective.
encapsulate, all
It's,
of the key
you know what,
issues of involving that.
and you know what it is, mate. I think it's because it seems so foreign to us as well. Like, over, where we live, obviously, like, guns aren't allowed, so it's not necessarily like, you can call into someone's house and someone's got like a shotgun just in case an intruder comes in. Like, that would be quite strange. So yeah, it's not exactly as ingrained in our culture as it is over there, is it? So it's a totally different society, mate, isn't it? It's just totally just a different perception of things, I suppose. But that being said, with this film, I feel like with the whole American Japanese thing, I'm glad it doesn't spend too much time in America before we kind of get to Japan. Because obviously, by the title Tokyo Drift, you expect a large portion of it to be set in that country, which is nice. It gets stuck in there, and there is slowed down with a bit of montages. As Sean learns like the skill of the drift and stuff. Like, it seems like a bit of a silly movie when you sort of compare it to the other ones, where it was more like, obviously you've got the Yakuza here, but obviously with the other ones it was more serious stuff, where it was kind of like, yeah, truck heists, robbery, those kind of things.
Yeah.
Whereas with here, kind of a big crux of the film just seems like Sean is just trying to learn the skill of driving. But that being said, I think the characters gel well, especially Sean and Han. So I'm excited to see them both return actually for the ninth one.
Hmm. Yeah, I agree with you that there's no sort of like, standout sort of set piece. Like
Yes, mate.
all of the all everything in this film that can be considered an action sequence is like just filmed from inside a car of just a guy's, shoulders and head while he
Yeah.
goes,
Or in a parking
like,
lot, parking lot or something. Yeah.
yeah, it's not exactly thrilling.
Yeah.
I think that is a sort of issue that's baked within the franchise to me, that I just don't care about racing. And I was wondering, do you find the racing in general? I know the franchise sort of steers away from that, which is sort of what I'm looking forward to. I sort of like
Mhm.
the I loved Hobbs and Shaw. In all
I
honesty,
liked
like
it too,
it
mate.
was it was textbook switch off your brain, enjoy this dumb piece of shit. And I'm hoping that every other film in this franchise is that, because it was so fun to watch. And here, I think when you have the racing taking up such a huge percentage, uh, to me, I was sort of bored by it, and I'm looking forward to it moving away from that.
I agree, mate, for sure. And I have to give credit again, to this franchise. They've clearly evolved with the market. No way on earth do I think they could have made 10 movies, mate, just based on street racing. It just wouldn't happen. And if they did, they definitely wouldn't do as well as the films would have done. I think this is one of like the top three or top five like top grossing franchises of all time. Like, fair play, fair play to them for that. And like, whoever struck that chord of, okay, we're gonna sort of switch this narrative from street racing to like just full out action. We'll get The Rock in, Jason Statham, Idris Elba to a degree as well. Charlize Theron. Like there's a lot of big names in there. And I think a lot of these big names are attracted to it because of how much money they make, of course, but also like how 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 many eyes are going to be on this film. Like these are some of the most popular films of the last decade, you know, especially the latter ones I'm talking about here. So with this film, part of me is glad that, you know, I can say like, yes, we've seen all the originals where they deal with racing, but I'm also glad to say we'll be moving on to see these more action-packed ones where it sort of deals with things outside street racing, because I think by our admission, we're not big car guys, you know, we're not big petrol heads by any means. So
Mhm.
it's just nice to see that sort of, not that they're like we're big like action guys or anything, but like I don't know, it's a nice evolution of that, to be honest with you. So credit to them for that.
Yeah, and we've talked a bit about the following films, a fair percentage of them being prequels to this film,
Yeah.
meaning that this film, based on the car models that are present there, that means this film's set in at least 20, like 2017, which just makes the technology hilarious,
Flip
because they have,
phones.
yeah, they have flip phones, and they have computers that are 6 inches thick. Like it's just so funny.
Old school, mate, old school. Like I remember back in the day, like when we first got like our computer in our house, like I think our generation was quite strange because like it was just at the stage where like internet was becoming very popular, but like not everyone had it. Does that make sense? Like,
Yeah,
do you
and
know what I mean? Like,
you still had like like shitty desktops.
yes, mate. Yeah, because I remember like the first big browser from my experience anyway was like Mozilla Firefox. Like it wasn't Internet
Mm,
Explorer, it wasn't Google Chrome. Like it was really slow. You'd have to like wait seconds for it to load on the screen. Like it was eBay had just started. Like Google had just started. So like I remember like eBay and stuff was pretty big then. But it was weird. Like our generation is the generation where like it was like my first phone was a flip phone. I imagine yours was as well.
no, but I imagine I got mine later than yours.
Later.
But like I had to devolve. Like I got like a shitty tiny touchscreen, but then my second phone was like you know the way like people make fun of like the Nokia bricks.
Yeah.
Like this one was worse. It was Samsung, and it was black and red, and it was like my dad's from work that was like indestructible. It was like built specifically that you could like drive a car over it.
Yeah,
So you
yeah.
can imagine how shit a phone that has to be for the money that you're paying for it to go into its durability.
Yeah, the phones back in the day, like I remember my first phone was like I was a big like Muppets fan back in the day, like Kermit the Frog and stuff. So like my first phone was like I want the green one. So it was like a green
Mm,
LG, it was like a flip phone. Obviously there's no internet then. Well, it couldn't really connect to Wi-Fi then, I don't think.
yeah,
So it was just literally just for text messaging and stuff. So um,
mine was an Orange Lisbon. I've never even
Hobbs
heard of
Shaw?
that brand
No, me
since.
neither. I remember but yeah, like it's interesting. Like phones have developed a lot since then, to be honest with you. Like as we say at the start of the podcast, um, like I think you used to make your notes on paper, but now we've sort of
Mm.
both sort of moved to the old mobile phone devices for that sort of enterprise of taking notes. So it's they've done us well. They've done us well. It's something I'm trying to actually win myself off. Use my phone actually. I'm knowing this is a big tangent here, but sure. Um,
Your phone in general, or to make notes specifically?
no, just my phone in general. Like I'm always just on it, so I've just deleted like a lot of apps just on it, and things like that. So, but yeah, obviously the technological devolution here is quite funny with in terms of like yeah, it should be 2017 or something, shouldn't it?
So I have nothing else on the film. Did
Oh
you have
mate.
anything further?
No, mate. Nothing from me to say. I suppose it's we should point out here for the viewers. We'll probably not be doing another Fast and Furious podcast until quite quite some time anyway. So this will probably be the final review. You'll hear us from quite a while on this franchise. But and obviously
Yeah,
we've got a lot.
we've,
Yeah,
we've
go on.
got we've got 2 full months until Fast 9.
Yeah,
So there'll probably be one episode every like 3 weeks or so.
yeah. So
Two
this was not too
two
long.
more episodes before Fast 9.
Yeah, mate. So if you want to give your rating for Tokyo Drift, mate, I'd love to hear it.
So I think it's definitely an improvement on the second film. It would be difficult to be a downgrade, I suppose, but I don't think it quite hits the heights of the first film. It is, you know, like it's bizarre to me whenever a film pitches, something that is known information as a mystery, and then they act like it's a revelation by the end. Like
Yeah,
there's something very similar in Mission Impossible Fallout, which I'm sure we'll talk about.
Yeah.
You know, because Mission Impossible 7 is coming out at some point this year. So you know, that was always bizarre to me in the first film. So I think both of the plots of the next two films, you know, they're less predictable. You don't know exactly where it's going. You know, it feels more like you're watching along rather than you're like waiting for like known information to be revealed. So I do think it plays better, you know, plot wise than the first film. But the characters are a bit less compelling aside from Han. So I would give it, you know, just a slight notch from the original 7.5.
Dude, I thought that was a great review, to be honest with you, buddy. I thought it was a perfect sort of analysis of it. Yeah, I'd have to agree. I think Han is definitely a highlight here. I think Lucas Black as Sean isn't actually as sort of as compelling as Paul Walker or as Brian or Vin Diesel as Dom, really. And I'm glad Dom has a little cameo in here. Um, but that being said, I feel like this film, it's certainly the most original out of the three. I think it is the most compelling. But that being said, something about that first film just draws me back to it. I don't know what it is, mate. I don't know whether it's just like it's because it's our first introduction to this franchise. It just feels so authentic. It feels just classic 2000s to me. I love it. So for me, I think this film, that being said, it doesn't achieve the heights of that first film, but it still balances out as a 7 for me. Like I think these films are reasonably consistent. Is that so? Yeah, I think the second one is probably the weakest out of the three, but there's no real massive variation in quality here. Like there's no like sort of how would I say, um, there's no like sort of MonsterVerse scenario where like Kong's Island is up there for me, and like King of the Monsters is quite a way below. You know what I mean? Like they're all very consistent, which I gotta hand it to them. Obviously, the franchise has moved on sort of since these kind of street racing films, so I'm looking forward to getting stuck in with the future ones too. But
Me too.
but
And you know,
yeah,
if you're gonna have a dip in a trilogy, or you know, in a set of three films, you know, the ideal is the second one so that you can still prove yourself on the next one,
yeah,
rather
definitely,
than
mate, for sure.
leaving someone on a dramatic drop. Because I mean, we watched the Godfather trilogy recently, and like
Yeah, we did, didn't
you
we?
know, I feel like I enjoyed the third one the most, but it is obviously the worst in quality, and it was like it was slated critically, and you can see why.
Yeah. Oh no, I get that for sure. Like, I think for me, it's hard to find a trilogy that gets better every single film. For me, like I'm trying to think of one that would come to mind for me. I'm really struggling to think here of like a trilogy that really improves. I mean, the Captain America trilogy is maybe the closest to it, but even still, like Winter Soldier for me is
Mm.
a little notch. Actually, if anything, the Captain America trilogy might get worse as it goes along. Actually, but like they're still awesome films. Like they're still incredible. It's just that I love the first Avenger so much. Um, but that bit, can you think of any trilogies that get better?
No, like because you obviously have the big ones like the four Indiana Jones films, and I think the low point, controversially, I think the low point is Temple of Doom, and then you have the original Star Wars trilogy where the best one is Empire Strikes Back. But I
Yeah.
don't think there's an iconic one where it is like where it just gets better and better. Yeah, I would really struggle to think. I'm hoping no, actually, I was gonna say maybe Ant-Man and the Wasp, but I actually prefer the first Ant-Man to Ant-Man and the Wasp.
Probably
So
probably Thor, if I'm gonna be honest. Thor, but like Thor, the first two Thor films aren't my like. I don't think they're
the
great.
second one is worse than the first one.
Okay, well, what about? See, I think if Terminator 3 was amazing, I think Terminator 1 is good. Terminator 2 is better than Terminator 1. So I think if they had a good Terminator
I don't think
for
Terminator 2 is
okay,
better
what
than
about
Terminator 1.
Back to the Futures? We're ruling that out because Back to the
Yeah,
Futures.
Back to the Future 2 is a stinker.
What? No, what? That's my favorite one. What are you talking about? Back to the Future 2 is my favorite one. What other one?
I'm now looking at my DVD collection.
I'll have to look here as
Um,
well. What about
damn it,
what
damn
about
you, Matthew, for
what
bringing this
about
up.
what about the Chris Pine Star Trek films?
Nah, the second one's worse than the
Ah,
first one and the
damn,
third one.
damn. I don't know.
Is this going to remain in the podcast? Who knows?
We'll
But
save it
like,
for another day,
I
will we?
suppose we'll see.
We'll save it for another day, potentially with the 100th episode of the podcast where we'll break down our
Yeah.
thoughts. But that being said, mate, I suppose do you want to let the viewers know what's going to be coming up sort of later on this week and early next week?
So I don't think I've actually spoken to you about this.
No, I'll hear
But
now.
next week, well, the remainder of this week, it's just going to be the standard TV reviews, and then also Judas and the Black Messiah.
Yes.
And then next week, I was going to ask you if you wanted to cover unnamed characters, where the principal or principal character, like where the principal character or principal characters are actually under pseudonym or are unnamed entirely. You
Like a
have
Fight Club style
the
sort of thing.
yeah. So there's the driver in Drive. There's the girl in the 7 Year Itch. Is that? Yeah, I think that's what it's called. And then there's the jurors in 12 Angry Men and El Mariachi in El Mariachi. So I mean that is if you have enough time to watch 4 films.
Yeah,
That would sort of be my idea for next week.
for
And
sure.
then we have Thunder Force coming out on Netflix. Potentially if we get time, Nomadland, and then the TV reviews as normal.
Yeah, I suppose it's worth noting as well. We're off for Easter too, so it's gonna be hopefully gonna be a bit more content coming for you guys this Easter. And as Callum said, I don't know if we're gonna be able to. Hopefully, we'll be able to watch Godzilla versus Kong this weekend. I think we're hopefully doing that
Mm,
review tomorrow, aren't we?
yeah,
So
hopefully so.
I'm really looking forward to that. So stay tuned for this weekend: Godzilla versus Kong, Riverdale, Falcon Winter Soldier, and Judas and the Black Messiah. Which I don't know if you've seen yet. It's very good. It's very good.
Not had the chance yet.
That's good. But yeah, thank you very much for today, mate. That was a really good time
Thank you.
recording. Hope you guys are all well. Hope your family and friends are all safe and well too. And yeah, as I said, it's good to be able to say this now. We've got the podcast on iTunes and stuff, so you can check us out down there. Link will be in the description. Take
And we're
care.
now
Oh,
over 200 subscribers on the
yeah,
channel.
I know. Thank you very much for everyone, and apologies for the squeakiness of our voices in the early episodes. I am working my way through getting every podcast up there, or at least most of them anyway. So yeah, thanks very much, man. Hope you guys are all well.
Thank you.
Take care, and bye bye.
Bye bye.